Welcome to the Unity BootCamp lesson on anonymous authentication. You'll want to use anonymous authentication in your app when you don't want to bother the user with a login screen but still have access to brainCloud features. To start, we'll navigate to the API reference. The API reference is a great source of information for all things brainCloud. It contains all the requests that the brainCloud client can make. On the left, navigate to the brainCloud wrapper's authenticate anonymous request. Scroll down and notice that there's a source code sample for each request in the API reference. For the authenticate anonymous request, notice we only have to supply 2 callback lambdas. The source code sample even allows you to change the programming language that you are using. Below that, click the JSON response. The JSON response is an example of the data that gets returned on a successful authentication response. We're ready to write some code. Open Visual Studio and navigate to the network script. Declare a pair of public delegates. These delegates will be used to handle the authentication response. In the isAuthenticated method, return the brainCloud client's authenticated state. Declare a public method called requestAnonymousAuthentication. This method will make the brainCloud authenticate anonymous request and handle the response. In the body of the method, declare a lambda to handle a successful authenticate anonymous response. Log a message along with the response data, and if the completed callback delegate is set, it will be invoked. Next, declare a failure callback lambda to handle a failed authenticate anonymous response. In the body of the lambda, log an error along with the status message, and if the failed callback delegate is set, it will be invoked. Make the brainCloud authenticate anonymous request, passing in the success and failure callback lambdas as the arguments. Save the file and then navigate to the game script. In the game class, we need to invoke the network's request anonymous authentication method that we just wrote and handle the response. Scroll down and declare a public method called onAuthenticationRequestCompleted. This method will be invoked on a successful authentication request. In this bootcamp lesson, we're only covering how to handle a successful authentication request. We will be covering how to handle a failed authentication request in a future lesson. On a successful authentication request, we'll simply hide the connecting dialog and then display the main menu. Above this method, we're going to declare a public method called handleAuthentication. This method is going to be changed a lot in upcoming lessons as we learn about different types of authentication. Right now, though, this method will only show the connecting dialog and then invoke the network's request anonymous authentication method, passing in the onAuthenticationRequestCompleted method as the argument. Scroll up and find the awake method. Delete the 2 highlighted statements, and in their place, invoke the handleAuthentication method instead. Save the file and then navigate into Unity. Back in Unity, if you have disabled auto refresh like I have, you'll need to trigger a manual refresh. Run the game. Notice that we display the connecting screen followed by the main menu. And at the bottom of the Unity window, you'll notice a log that indicates that the authenticate anonymous request was successful. We now have an active brainCloud session and are ready to make additional brainCloud requests. Reconnect authentication is the next lesson in the Unity Bootcamp.